What's up, guys? How's it going? My podcastees, welcome back. Episode 64. It's good to be back. It's good to be on another episode, and yeah, welcome. Hopefully we got some people here to kind of riff with me a little bit, give me your thoughts on some of these topics. Got a few things to talk about, and so yeah, we'll get into that here. So if this is your first time tuning into this, whether or not you're listening to the live stream or if you're going to listen to this at a later date, my name is Benjamin John. I'm the host of The Virus. This is not a COVID-19 podcast, but rather a podcast where I have viral viewpoints and contagious combos and talk about thought-provoking things and things of substance that we kind of want to riff about with people and get their viewpoints on. So welcome, and feel free to chime in. And even if you listen to this podcast at a later date, go ahead and drop some comments, and whether or not this is on Facebook, YouTube. By the way, let me just give you the plugs real quick. You can find live streams on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, posted content on Instagram, Spotify, and Twitter. So follow me rather, on any one of those platforms, and give me a like, give me a subscribe, share it, comment on it, give me a little bit of love. Let's keep this momentum rolling for this podcast, and I appreciate that. Appreciate anybody who's been here, chiming in, contributing, give me some of their thoughts. I know it takes, some people are busy, some people aren't busy, some people choose to, spend a lot of their time probably wasting it, whether or not it's Netflixing out all day or, whatever, just kind of wasting time. I really appreciate anybody who's taken the time in the past to chime in and give me their time. Time is definitely one of the most valuable assets we have, and so I appreciate that and I recognize that. So thank you very much for the support and for the contribution and for just tuning in. All right. So yeah, I've got a lot of things to talk about. I did my best to kind of carve out what I'd like to talk about. There's a few things. I got so much. I'm so backed up on. I'm overwhelmed. It's kind of weird because early on there were some episodes where I just didn't know. There were some episodes where I didn't have any material or content prepped out at all. And so it's kind of nice to have this other problem now where I have too much to talk about. Literally, I have a ton of content that I record as I go throughout my week on my recorder. When I get an idea, I have a thought, I just record it on this real quick. And then I revisit that, the hour prior to the episode and kind of jot it down. I also review books and experiences that I went to, that I have been involved in. And so I've got, I want to say I think I'm on the fourth book that I haven't even reviewed yet. And so I have a ton of notes. I got like 3 or 4 pages just on one book that I've either listened to the audiobook or read the book. The first one was Grant Cardone's Be Obsessed or Be Average. Ton of good notes on that. As a matter of fact, that's going to be our first contagious combo topic, is a little bit of, it's going to stem from some of that Be Obsessed or Be Average content that I got from the book. The other 3 books, 2 of which I already listened to the audiobook, and the third one I'm actually in the middle of listening to right now, was by a gentleman named Stefan Aarnio. And the first book was, what was that? Money People Deal. The second book is, why am I drawing a blank on this thing? Yeah, I am drawing a blank on that, unfortunately. Too many books. I have like a stack of 10 books on my counter, and a ton I haven't even got to yet. So kind of anxious to talk about some of it and anxious to get to the other books that I had in mind. And so, it was called, I just had it. It's like on the tip of my tongue. You know what? I'm going to look now because that is bothering me. I have way too much content. So anyways, what I'm saying is it's nice to have a ton of content, whereas opposed to before, I kind of really know what to talk about. So Self-Made, there we go. Self-Made is another audiobook that I listened to, which I enjoyed. I don't know why I forgot that, because that was one of my favorite audiobooks to listen to. I really enjoyed that quite a bit, actually. It takes you kind of through the journey of how Stefan Aarnio got into real estate, all his ups and downs, the things he had done to put himself in a position of, I guess, being a winner, being lucky at times, just showing up in all these different times in his life to where he was, so successful in that industry. Unfortunately, the man died last year in May from cancer. And that's super sad, because I think he was younger than me. I think he was 35 or 36. And so it's really sad to see someone young pass away, especially someone that really had a lot of value to contribute to people, which he did. He had already done that. And so I followed the guy for a few years, and it's only recently, until I heard him pass away, that I started really anxiously just consuming all his content. I knew that his podcast, Respect the Grind, wasn't going to be obviously continuing anymore without him. And so, I don't know, I just kind of freaked out. I was like, oh man, I better make sure I get all his books and get a lot of his content. And I've done that. And so I've been listening to it, reading it, taking a lot of, I bought into some of his programs. And so you do a wealth potentials test, and you do all kinds of other things. Comes with journals that really talks a lot about keeping track of it's a little bit more than goal setting. It's a lot about what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, where you're going to do it. I mean, real specifically, and what actions you're going to take to actually hit that said goal. And I mean, there's one for every day. So that's just how high performance individuals work. They're very specific, and they're very prompt and very deliberate with what actions they're going to take to get them further and closer, rather, to their goal, and as far as wherever they want to be, or who they want to meet, or how much money they want to make, or all those things. So anyways, ton of content. I'm digressing a little bit. Ton of content, and I can't wait to get to it, because like I said, I got a ton of notes on it, and it's all valuable stuff. I think it's a lot of good stuff that anybody really can take value from at any time. So anyway, super happy to be here. Let's see, we are on episode 64, and so yeah, can't believe it. 64 episodes, 2 hours apiece. It's quite a bit of hours into this podcasting so far. I think of people that are 200, 300, 500 episodes in on a podcast, and I'm just like, man, that's a lot of devoted time. That's a lot of contributed time. So yeah, super cool. My next mile marker is going to be 100 episodes. I really can't wait to hit that. Really want to start integrating more guests on the podcast. Since the last podcast, it seems like all the guests I have had on this podcast are really good to talk to. Really, really solid individuals. We always have something to get into as far as a good topic of conversation. And so, yeah, I really, really appreciate it. And so I'm going to keep that going, try to get a little more consistent with that, see if I can get 1 or 2 guests per month on the show. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. It's really just, I think it's easier actually than it is hard, because it's just a matter of lining someone up and getting them to commit to that day. So anyways, keep your ears out and keep your eyes open. I'll have a lot of guests coming up here in the future. All right. Let's get right into it. Let's get into the contagious combo for today. So this is straight out of Grant Cardone's Be Obsessed or Be Average. I got a ton of value out of that book. That guy speaks right to my soul, as he does with a lot of individuals, which is why he's got such a big following and a big, he started the 10X movement, and which is why he's just got a lot of people gravitating towards him. He's just a very, very good guy. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of good advice, a lot of, just obvious things that an individual needs to do to advance in the direction in whatever it is they want to advance in. And so, yeah, I think he just really speaks to a lot of people's soul. So anyways, he talked a lot about, I think I might have even talked, you've heard me talk a lot about some of these things, but we're going to get a little more into it. He talked about the naysayers, all right? The naysayers and the haters, okay? And he specified in that book that the naysayers are much worse than the haters. And I know what he's saying. Basically, the haters make themselves, they make themselves known. They're very in your face. They'll talk shit to you and make it very apparent that they're hating on whatever your message is or whatever you're trying to do and promote. And so that makes it easy to identify as far as their position. It makes it very easy to spot them, and you know what that is, right? There's no smoke and mirrors. The haters, now it's funny we're talking about this because I think it was the very first episode I did with this last year on the virus. One of my topics was about silent haters. And that's kind of what this is referring to. The haters, the silent haters would be referring to the naysayers, all right? Not even necessarily, I guess there's three types of hate. So you got the naysayers, you got the haters, then you got the silent haters. The naysayers are usually your friends and family. They're usually people, that are real close to you. They project that doubt, that negativity, and it's usually in their own life that they're, feel fearful of something, and they just, or what's the way to put it? They're conditioned, their self-talk has been conditioned for who knows how many years just to be negative and to have that doubt. And they project that into whoever's close to them. And usually it's friends and family. And so it's unfortunate that's how it plays out, but that's the truth. And so you got the naysayers, you got the haters. We just went over the haters. Those guys are just flat out like, I don't like your message. I don't like you. And so those are the haters. The silent haters are the ones that won't tell you anything that they're thinking about. They're hating on you, but they won't tell you that. And so those are dangerous ones too. They'll potentially, a lot of times, are your friends and family as well. And so they'll act as if they're part of your support system, but in the background, they're rooting for you to fail. And all this stuff we're talking about is projected from that individual. They're trying to make sense of why, right? Because they've been conditioned to have that negative self-talk and the doubt. And trust me, we all have doubt. We'll get into that in a sec. But they've been conditioned so long that they're trying to justify their lack of ambition through their projection of this negativity and doubt, right? We already have doubt in us. Doubt is part of human nature. What really promotes that growth, that mentality growth, and that positive mindset is when you push yourself and challenge that doubt, right? It's only been recently in the past 3 to 5 years. I started 5 years ago, maybe even 6 now, when I quit my job. Well, actually, it was when I was 30, almost 31. So it was actually closer to 8 years. I can't even believe how time has flown. This is crazy. And so, yeah, we basically, I started back then. And so that doubt has just, when you exercise challenging that doubt you have, you really grow so much. And you're basically just like, that doubt and that little voice in the back of your head that is that doubt, you're just telling that voice to fuck off. And especially when you achieve certain things and you surpass that doubt, you're like, holy shit, I did that and I had doubt the whole time. It could be something that you've doubted yourself about for years, and you actually take a chance and you take a risk on this. Next thing you know, you surpass whatever it was you had the doubt about. And there's nothing better. There's not a better feeling than that when you've actually accomplished that. It is a huge sense of accomplishment and a huge confidence level up. You know what I mean? That level of confidence has just risen so much. And then it makes you want to take more risks, and it makes you want to challenge more doubts. and makes you want to really grow, because it's just such a good feeling. It is. What's up, Snakes? Good to see him. Good to see your text, my friend. Yeah, so you're saying the system is rigged anyways. I mean, no doubt, absolutely. Which system are you particularly talking about, though? That way we can get into that. That type of shit is a losing mindset for sure. Yeah, exactly, man. And no doubt systems are rigged. I mean, for one, the educational system is one thing that just screams to me, which is completely rigged. They don't even promote you to be creative. It's funny because they act as if they promote creativity and individualism, but they really don't. They teach you how to be normal. They teach you how to be compliant, how to fit in, how to be part of the average society. And that's something I did for so many years, and it's not something I want to be associated with at all anymore. That is such a fucking turnoff to me. And it's disgusting to me that they promote that. That is what the name of the game is for an educational system. Now, I'm not saying education is bad. I'm saying the educational system is pretty bad. So yeah, Snakes, you were saying that you mean being a justification why people can't do things in their lives. Yeah, absolutely. The justification, man, is a lot of projection. The people that aren't ambitious and who haven't taken any risks and play it safe, the real risk overt, they're the ones that they're putting that negativity and doubt into someone else because that is their own feeling, and they're trying to make sense of why they haven't lived up to their capability, why they haven't taken any risk, why they haven't challenged anything, why they have chosen to be bare bones, minimal, and average. And that's their way of justifying and making sense of that. And that type of shit really, it just stands out to me like a sore thumb now, especially because I was that type of individual. I really went on another side of a fence where I was that excuse maker. Even though, I was still pretty motivated, I wasn't necessarily super ambitious. I was slightly ambitious, and I never leaned into my ambition. And so, yeah, it's really, I definitely lived that life where I didn't challenge myself and I didn't doubt myself. So when I see that type of stuff and that mentality, it just really screams out to me. And I enjoy when people ask me and start talking to me about stuff like that, because that tells me they take an interest and they're actually searching. Well, it's one of two things. Either if someone's having a conversation with me about this very topic, they're still trying to make sense of it while they're talking to me about it, or they're actually intrigued about something more, something better, something that could transform their life, really. And that's the conversation that interests me, because now we're talking about changing somebody's life. And we're talking about, I enjoy doing that, because if I can use my own experience too to give advice to somebody, I love that, man. I like helping people out, and I'm still on my own journey. Like, I have goals I have set, and I'm going to reach them. And so I want everybody to take note of where I'm going, what I'm doing, how I'm going to do it, because I'm going to get there. I'm going to be there. It's going to take some years, but it's going to happen. And when it does happen, I want everybody to acknowledge that, and maybe not for my own gloat or sense of pride, but for them to use me as an example. Like, holy shit, Ben did it. You know what I mean? Like, he started here and now he's here. And anybody who's been close to me, like you, Snakes, anybody who's been close to me through a lot of this journey and kind of watched the things I've done, you're going to see all the ups and downs, all the brick walls I've hit, all the resets I've had to do. I mean, there's been times just in this last, has it been 8 years? I feel like it has only been 6 years. So it must have been 32 when I actually quit that job. I thought it was when I was 30, but I don't know. I got to look at the dates now. I think now that I'm thinking about it, there's no way it feels like 8 years. But anyways, just let's just say 6. In the last 6 years, anybody who's been close to me has definitely witnessed me get knocked down on my ass and start from zero a few times. Whether it's, quitting a business journey with a partner and having to restart that, whether it's been, quitting the job I had for 10 years. I've just taken some steps. I've taken a lot of steps after falling down. I've fallen down. There's like Stefan Aarnio said that there was like a Japanese proverb or something like that where you fall down 7 times and you get up 8 times. And I swear to God, I've done that. I've fallen and failed so many times that it's just normal, and I've learned to figure out how to enjoy that and roll with that. The failure is something I'm not saying I necessarily look forward to, but it does excite me because now I know I've learned something and now I know what I want to do next. It's weird to describe, to explain, but failure is something that I've learned to welcome now, whereas whereas previously on the other side of the fence, I used to be risk overt. I was very safe, very meticulous on which moves I would take. I didn't take too much risks at all. Matter of fact, I played it way too safe. And it's only since I threw that out the window and started taking these risks that I've been able to actually grow. So, but yeah, that's a lot. That's what he talked about. You know what I mean? Going back to, this is the mindset that I'm talking about. These 2 different mindsets that I have transitioned from. The naysayers and the haters are still living over here in this negative and doubtful side. And so I guess the reason I'm talking about it is take a look at your own self-talk. David Goggins talks a lot about your internal dialogue you have with yourself. I talk about it a lot too. That self-talk you have is super important with what you act on, and so it's very important that you are consuming content that speaks to those values, that also you're not surrounded, pay attention to who you're surrounded by at work, who you're surrounded by at home, who you're surrounded by in your recreational activities, friends, outings. Just pay attention to the type of projection that people do unto you, and the 2 particular things I'm talking about is the doubt and the negativity. When you actually do a little evaluation of this, like do an experiment with this, like pay attention when you're around a group setting, whether it's just you and one other individual, friends, family, someone close with you, someone not close with you. Just do a little mental evaluation, pay attention to the amount of negativity that comes out of that person. It will fucking surprise you big time. When you pay attention to that stuff, you're going to realize, like, holy shit, that's part of why I'm negative, perhaps, or why I have doubt. Because like I said, that doubt, we already have doubt. We're humans. And so if you don't challenge that doubt enough, that doubt just festers and will keep you in fear mode, and you're never going to take a chance. You're never going to expand from that. You're always just going to be in doubt. We already have doubt. So once you acknowledge the fact that we have some doubt we got to work past, you have to make a conscious effort to say, you know what, I doubt it. More times than not, if you are doubting something and it's scary and it's riskful, that means you probably would greatly benefit from challenging that doubt and going against the grain and testing it and doing something completely different, completely outside of the norm, completely not what you're used to. You're going to gain so much growth out of that. So just pay attention to how much doubt people try to put into you. Even if, it's not direct, it's always subconsciously, indirect. Even if they use their own, it can come in many forms. The person that complains a lot, I mean, that's even doubtful and just negative projection, you know? So all these things, yeah, the reason I'm talking about it is it's just something I would like people to kind of pay attention to, challenge themselves a little bit more on. Pay attention to who those naysayers are, who the haters are, who the silent haters are, all three of those types of people. Pay attention to who they are and surround yourself with neither of them, if possible. Really try to distance yourself from those three types of people. But going back to what GC said about the naysayers and the haters, it is much worse to have naysayers in your life, because those are the people that they get close to you and they try to incept you with this poor mindset, this negative mindset. And the haters, although they will try to incept you with that negative mindset, they're easy to dodge. They're easy to get out of your life because they're in your face. They're like, you suck. I don't like you. You're like, that's cool. Cool story, man. Get out of my face. And you're done. Like, you don't have to tolerate that. But the naysayers in your life, you know, sometimes it's hard, especially like I was saying, they're your friends and family. And so sometimes it's really hard to pull the plug. And that's a huge decision that some people just don't want to make. They just don't, for whatever reason. There's multiple reasons why people tolerate that in their life. And, you know, one of the reasons could be because of justification that we were talking about earlier. You know, having that type of company near you is also a form of justifying your position and where you're at and why you're not doing anything. You know, when you got the naysayer there constantly doing the doubt and the negative projection right in close proximity to you, and you understand that you're not really living to your full capabilities, it gives you justification. It gives you a green light. It makes you feel better about yourself because now you're in alignment with that person. And so that's just a bad path to go down. But once you identify that stuff, you can actually make that decision and be honest with yourself. Like, is this where I want to be? Is this what I'm meant to do? Is this fulfilling my purpose? Do I want to do something different? Like, there's some actual real questions you should probably be asking yourself when you're faced with so much negativity in your immediate circle. What were you saying, Snakes? In my opinion, what is the best use of your haters? Hey, that's a fantastic question. I love that question because I have a great answer for that. So an example of this, and here you kind of answered it. You said ignore them and entertain them, or some other option. Well, I entertain them, not in the way you think. So sometimes I'll banter with them, and which I don't do very, very often. You might have caught me doing that sometimes. Like, for instance, on our band page, we'll get into it with some people like that. That's the worst path to take, right? And as long as you're not taking it personal, it's okay to do that. It's entertaining, but more times than not, the way I like to handle the haters is the way I like to handle my bad reviews on my business page. And here's what I mean by that. I will give you an example. So first of all, let me tell you what I mean by that, and then I'll give you an example. What I mean by that is when someone hates on you, it's an open invitation to show anybody who's watching how you handle that negativity, how you should approach that, what's the best way to handle it. And you can really, if you honestly are this way and you have a lot of good integrity and you are reliable and honest and you are the type of individual that wants to solve problems and make things right, this is the best scenario to be in. It might sound weird to you, but when I see a negative review, which I haven't had, I've only had one negative review, but I did have one of these type of reviews recently. And so let me give you an example. She started off with, "Oh my God, I love my new project edition." We finished this job up for her, right? "Oh my God, I love my new project edition. It's so great. I will say that there were some hiccups on the job. The person on site didn't make a couple notes in the contract as far as location goes, so he had to verify that with me, and those were things that should have been jotted down." She also said the direction of the way something should have been done wasn't done, and we specifically talked about it this way. And when I was on the site with her, I couldn't remember, and I tried knocking on the door to ask her, but she didn't answer, and so I had to make an executive decision. And when I did make that decision, it was the opposite of what we talked about, apparently. So she said in the comments that that could have been that should have been noted, and it should have not been discussed again. He should have had everything written down. And then she went on to say that we left a mess in the grass, which is basically, we do a lot of sheet metal work and cutting, and so there's a lot of itty bitty metal particles that get left behind. We do put out a tarp, and we do all our work on a giant tarp, and we funnel it into a garbage bag after the day. But sometimes there's pieces that get out of there, whether they fall into a hole. A little mess kind of happens sometimes. And we spent extra time well, let me finish her review here. So she said there was pieces of metal in the glass, not very good for bare feet or my animals tracking it. And so this is the review she left. And so when I seen that, it was kind of weird, because she was sweet and then sour, right? She did leave me 3 out of 5 stars, so she wasn't completely complaining. She did lead with, I love my new addition. So my reply to that was like, hi, how you doing, homeowner? Glad to hear that you're enjoying that new patio cover. Glad we were able to get that squared away for you and get you in sooner than later. In regards to the lack of information and details on the job, apologize for that. That was something that should have been jotted down, and I take full accountability for that. I'm going to make a note and make it paramount that from here forward, every detail is going to be written down, small and big. And then I went on to say and also the metal shavings that were left in the yard, absolutely sorry about that. We do our best to clean everything up and contain it and get it funneled into a bag. And we spent extra time going through that grass and picking up little pieces of anything that we've seen individually by hand and putting it in the bag. When it's a wet day and wet grass, it's really hard to get all that stuff up. But again, we'll make it a point to spend a little bit more time to clean that up and make it a little more presentable. So thank you for your feedback. This helps us with quality control. We're going to start working on this from here on out. So the way I handled that was, it was a problem solving mentality, right? Everything she talked about, I addressed every single little thing. And what she should have did was called me, though. But because anytime there's a thing, I'll come back and fix it. I'm a problem solver, so anytime there's an issue, I want to solve it rather than someone make a nasty review. Even though hers wasn't very nasty, but it was the first out of 3. I mean, everybody gives us a 4 or 5 star review out of 5. So she was the first 3-star review that I've gotten. And so the other thing is, you know what I mean? Like, well, to answer your question, Snakes, and before I get derailed too much, I like those because it makes us, it highlights that we're human. We're a company. We make mistakes. And it gives me an opportunity to show people that, hey, when there's a problem on the site, we fix it. Anything that comes up, we get in front of it, we handle it, it gets taken care of. You're going to be happy when we leave. There was another example of that where there was an issue on the job where the lady she had a conversation with my sales rep about the color of this edition being a different color. Now, the contract that she signed very clearly stated the color that we had on the site. And so when she said, no, I talked to him about this color, I talked to my sales rep and said, hey, she said it was this color. And he said, no, she's full of shit. Matter of fact, she talked about the other color first and then switched to this color. So even after me finding out that the lady was taking advantage of me, I still solved that problem and said, you know what? Yeah, we'll get it fixed. I don't know where the miss was. It sounds like there's a little misunderstanding. No problem. I got extra material at the house. We're going to swap that out. I'll figure out what to do with that material. We'll get you the right color. I did it immediately. That next day, I got the material, picked it up, got it to the site, and we installed it the way she wanted to. And then when she left a review, she said, very fantastic job. There was a problem on the job that got taken care of immediately without any hiccups. Very happy with this company. I would refer them. So even she talked about her little experience and how things just got picked up real quick. But yeah, to answer your question, Snakes, I really enjoyed that because it gives me an opportunity to show people how we operate when in a worst case scenario when things come up. So that's how I handle the haters on a business site. And that's how I typically like to handle haters in general. I like to, if it's a hater specifically, I don't even want to be around them usually. I don't even want to entertain them anymore. There's been a couple times where I've taken the bait in good faith, thinking that I can actually have a good conversation with somebody, and it's always bit me in the ass. Always. I just did this recently. I talked about it a couple episodes back about the lady that I talked with on Instagram about toxic masculinity, and I had a conversation with her. She thought she wanted to have a conversation, but in fact, no, she wanted to shame and talk shit about people and try to make people look bad. She wasn't there for a conversation. And so I took the bait on that. I paid for it, and I've done that a couple times. Even on our band page where I've bantered with people and got into it with people, taken that bait. So even me, I've been guilty of it, but in general, I don't want to engage in that stuff. So it is better to ignore the haters, or you can either ignore them or combat it with problem solving, or hit them with logic, or not even kindness, but yeah, I guess kindness. Hit them with logic, kindness, or problem solving. Those three things I would say are the best ways to handle a hater, in my opinion. It also it makes you feel good that you didn't make yourself dumber for for engaging in that and going down that path. So yeah, that's how I tend to handle people these days. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna move on. Good talk. I love that conversation. Like I said, there were so many golden nuggets in Be Obsessed or Be Average, Grant Cardone's book. And so I'm going to just start chipping away at that, and hopefully I can hurry up and get to these other books, Money People Deal, Self-Made, and then right now the book I'm reading is 10 Commandments of Negotiation. All of them are good. Like even 10 Commandments of Negotiation is super good. I really enjoy this one. It's all stuff that speaks to me and is relative to my current life. And so I think anybody can take a ton of value out of these all four books actually. And then, but yeah, I need to get caught up because there's way too many gold nuggets in all these books. So we'll get there. And so just bear with me. Not enough. 2 hours is not enough time. It just simply isn't. So, all right, let's get into the review section here. So 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago? It might have been 3 now. Whenever I did the episode with Wormhole, that was the same day. We're going to talk a little bit about UFC right now. That was the same day that Israel Adesanya and, God, I cannot pronounce that guy's name. Blachowicz, maybe. I think it's the Polish guy that he fought, who was, a little bit heavier than him. I finally watched that fight and was able to review it. I was highly going with Israel Adesanya. I didn't know much about Blachowicz, but now after the fight, I did hear him talk, and I did see his athleticism and his good sportsmanship even before and after the fight. So I think he's a very solid individual too, and he's a very good fighter. Now, I like Israel Adesanya. He's got a good attitude, very straight up individual, and he's very sharp. I've heard that guy talk quite a bit, and he's a very sharp individual, and I appreciate that. He's very he's got a good head on his shoulders. And I think he is very self-improvement oriented. So I really take a liking to that, especially as a fighter. You know, he's just not that Neanderthal type, just overly, you know, just I want to fight type mentality. So very sharp guy. Anyways, I was going for him. Unfortunately, he lost that fight. You know, I don't know if he's been undefeated. I can't remember what his record is. I know he's really been on a huge win streak. He's been one of those unstoppable guys. He went into a higher fight class there for a while, which is why he's facing Blachowicz, who was a lot heavier than him, a little bit bulkier. And it showed. It showed in the fight. The guy was definitely using his weight and you know, stand-up skills. So my notes that I had taken, or my review, was that Adesanya was he is the type of he is kind of a cautious fighter, but not really. He's not a guy that just goes in raging. He's not, but he is a guy that puts a lot of pressure on. Now, in this fight, I think he could have put on more pressure. I think he was way too tentative. He was too cautious. He didn't. Another thing I thought he really could do would really change his game, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fight expert. Just in my viewing experience out of watching UFC since it's been out, since the Royce Gracie days, right? My personal opinion is that if he was to incorporate bobbing and ducking and weaving, he doesn't do that. His dodge move is always to back away. And one of the key things I noticed was really successful and a really good tactic for Mike Tyson in all his wins was the bobbing. He did a lot of the bobbing. And so many times when he did that, there was a lot of missed punches when the opponent would swing, because it's just a huge moving target, and not just in the same level. When you duck and bob and weave, you're changing the level of your head, you know, which is the target typically. And so I've always thought, when I seen Mike Tyson fighting, that was one of the best techniques to winning, because almost every time he would be, especially on the follow-up, when he can duck and dodge and then come up with a hook, a right or left hook, which he both had a good hook in, he would end up with a KO, because it's kind of a shock or surprise factor too. It's one of those punches you don't see coming, because you don't expect somebody to duck dodge, and when they come up with a punch, it's kind of catches you off guard. But anyways, I think Adesanya, if he starts implementing that ducking and dodging and bobbing and weaving technique into his fight when he's getting into flurries, I think he's going to be pretty unstoppable, because the guy's got the total package. He can kick, he can box. He's got unusual, unorthodox fighting style, you know, with spinning kicks, and he's lengthy, he's long and stringy. I think he's got a lot to expand on and to add into his arsenal to really be an unstoppable guy, which he has been already. But man, I think that would have been a game changer, I think, because especially in that particular fight, because Blachowicz was just eating him with the boxing, man. He would just come in, and Adesanya would try to do the backup dodge, but he would still get caught quite a bit. He caught him a lot of times, and he didn't like knock him out or daze him or anything, but he got him pretty solid. And he actually incorporated a couple good kicks to the head, which surprised me. Like, he's a big dude, so it always surprises me when I see the bigger guys throwing head kicks. I like that. Shows me that they're well-rounded. But it was very exciting to watch. You know, went to decision. Blachowicz got the win. You know, but yeah, that's basically it. He ate a lot of punches. He ate a lot of kicks. He got taken down a few times. So he just kind of met an opponent who was just more ready and more prepared that day, unfortunately. And so, yeah, big ups to Blachowicz. By the way, I listened to the interview after that fight from Israel Adesanya. That guy is very noble. He's a very noble guy, very respectful. He didn't talk any shit. Matter of fact, he congratulated him. He said, you know, he was the better fighter, and you know, he did a good job. You know, he found a hole in my game, and no one's been able to really do that lately. And so big ups to him. And so I love when people have good sportsmanship. and don't let things get personal and take it to the heart. You know what I mean? That's the name of the game. So it shows a lot about someone's character when they can be big about that and congratulate someone that just whooped their ass. Even if they didn't whoop their ass, they won. It speaks a lot to their pride. It's a lot of people have that ego and that pride that they don't want to reduce. And so when you make yourself vulnerable like that, you put yourself in a position of vulnerability and you lose, and then you follow up with congratulating the person that beat you at something that's in a competitive atmosphere. It really, to me, shows a huge positivity in that character. And so, yeah, I appreciate that guy, man. Israel Adesanya is a super cool guy. Let me get a drink of this. I'm getting a dry throat. Oh, man. That's good stuff. Got that cold brew Califia mocha flavor with some almond milk. Trying to get some caffeine in me. I've been running on like 4 or 5 hours. I swear to God, for the last 2 weeks straight. I've noticed I'm really, really tired. I'm so slammed. Ever since I got back from Miami, things are just backed up. And I'm getting a ton of extra business, which is good. We're getting a lot of extra business, but man, I have no time. And so really just trying to be productive and trying to stay awake. So the other thing regarding UFC real quick here, what's her name? Miesha Tate just announced she's coming out of retirement. And that's pretty cool, actually. That actually excites me. I've always liked Miesha Tate. For one, she's local. I think she's from, I want to say she's from Yakima, which is where I'm from. And she had a huge presence in the UFC. She did very well for herself. And she also had some big losses, you know what I mean? I can't remember who it was. Someone broke her arm in the armbar position. That was pretty intense. But plus she's super hot, like super cute. One of the hottest chicks in UFC, I think. But and she's a pretty good fighter. I don't think she's like phenomenally aggressive or like much of a finisher, but she is a good fighter, and she does put on a lot of pressure. She's going to fight, I want to say I didn't get the date. I think it was April 17th, maybe May 17th. I know it's coming up soon. And I don't know how long she hasn't fought for. It's probably been a couple years, maybe longer. She's gonna fight this girl named Marianne Renaud. There we go. And I never heard of this girl, so I started watching some of her fights, the highlights, and then I watched the Holly Holm fight she had. I think she lost that fight to Holly Holm. Actually, she ate a lot of kicks. So my opinion of Marianne was super aggressive fighter. Not aggressive, but she puts on a lot of pressure. Every fight that I've seen on the highlights and the Holly Holm fight, even if she's losing, she is just coming forward and she's throwing. Now that's one thing though I would say is her flurries, when she comes forward, she kind of does this flurry of wild punches that isn't really effective. It's more like a confusion tactic where she's just trying to get in close, and when she does, then maybe the punches start getting a little more accurate. But she did a lot of that where she'd just come in blazing, and I think that can work sometimes. It's not always going to work with an actual tactical fighter whose pinpoint accuracy is a lot more effective than the random sporadic flurries. The sporadic flurries can work sometimes just to get you in and get you close. So I did notice that about her. Although she is a badass. So I seen her, she was doing some weird shit, like very, very aggressive, because I seen her even one fight. I can't remember that lady's name, but she was fighting with this one chick that had her like in the air, picked her up in the air, and I just seen her just like punching her in the face while she was being picked up in the air. So she wasn't even focused on being slammed on the ground. She was still kind of punching in the air. And you don't see that move done very often, because most times when people get picked up, they're more focused on being slammed down on the ground, which she did get slammed on the ground, but she was focused on delivering damage before that happened. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight. I'll keep you guys, I'm going to watch it after it happens and we'll review that. But I'm excited. I like Miesha Tate, and like I said, she's a hometown hero. So let's see if she can get back. She's been saying that she feels a lot better than she ever has in her whole life. She's in a better space. I don't know what that means, but I guess she had some things she was working on mentally in her own life, maybe. But it sounds like she has gone past that, gone through it, and she feels better than ever mentally, as well as physically. So I'm excited to see her hit the ring again and see what she's gonna do. So, but that's that. So that covers our UFC. Let's get into. I have another topic that I do want to talk about. It's not. So I don't talk a lot about too much about like veganism or plant-based lifestyle. But I am going to talk about something along those lines because I want to get people's opinion on it. I've had this conversation with some people before, and it just intrigues me. It's just a good conversation to have, and I love people's viewpoints on it. And it just intrigues me. It's a hard conversation, or it can be an easy conversation. But what I wanted to talk about was speciesism. I don't know if you've heard this term or not. Speciesism is much like, well, in my opinion, it's much like racism or sexism. You might have heard of those before. There's, and that's subjective. That's my personal opinion. I think there's a lot of people that might, I don't know, in my opinion, they're justifying why it may not be the same as racism or sexism. But to me, it very much is the same. It's when, anytime, all three of those are basically referring to when someone, something, some animal is lesser than you, and you think you or your race or your gender or your being or culture is superior to this other person for usually just an arbitrary reason. Usually it's always just an arbitrary reason. There's no valid logic as to why this dynamic has been established. So we're all familiar with racism, obviously. There's the unspeakable act of the slavery period, where there was that, and then even after the slavery had ended, there's still been residual racism just because people have chosen to be racist. You know what I mean? We don't know why. A lot of that's taught or learned and taught from people who have ill intent or have just been taught bad values and bad, they've been misinformed like anything. You know what I mean? A lot of these things just are bred from misinformation and disinformation. And so, yeah, we're familiar with racism. We're familiar with sexism, obviously, more particularly when, using an example is when women in the back in the day weren't able to vote, weren't able to do a lot of the men's jobs. And so now we've graduated from, implementing women into, accepting everybody as equal when it comes to sexes, right? And so we've come a long way in that. And again, there's still probably residual sexist individuals in the community, and that kind of gets exposed every now and then. But for the most part, we've transitioned. I definitely think, and there's a lot of people that, the woke movement, and a lot of people that are really gung-ho about eradicating racism and sexism completely, which is probably never going to happen. It's never going to happen. You're always going to have somebody who's fucked up with their thought process, right? But there's some people that are just so hung up on that where they're not going to stop until every last individual has stopped being racist or sexist. Unfortunately, we got bad people in the world, and you're never going to change all of them. You can do your best to promote your message, but you know, the delivery method in which that message is being projected is, I think, needs to be taken with caution and taken a little more safely and methodically. Like, for instance, you know, I don't know, I think like the BLM movement, right? If you want to know my opinion about that, I don't know if the protesting is going to do any good, and I know this is old news now, but since we're talking about sexism, racism, and speciesism, I'm just using this as an example. I think, you know, I'm not going to, my message right now and the topic is on speciesism. Now, using like the racism example and the BLM protesting that we had recently last year, I'm not going to say that having a speciesism movement is going to actually do any good. I could be wrong. That's just my personal opinion. I just don't think there's, you know, well, first of all, those type of protests just invite and welcome in people that have ulterior motives in that. And so next thing you know, you got people that are coming in to protest for different reasons, for ill intent, and then you got a whole can of worms, and you got everything's mixed up. You don't even know what the message is at that point, because everybody's doing their own thing. People are getting shot, cops are getting bricks to the back of their head, they're getting killed. I mean, it's just crazy right now. So I would say in general, it's not good, in my opinion. So without diverting too much, speciesism, in my opinion, is much like those, because speciesism, if you're not familiar with it, is basically I'm going to give you the proper definition, actually, of it, because I have never looked it up. I know what it is, but I want to see what good old Google says about speciesism. Okay, speciesism is the assumption of human superiority leading to the exploitation of animals. Hey, I love that. That's the most basic explanation and definition to it, actually. That's exactly it. And so we basically, when humans think that we're better than animals, thus exploiting them for, you know, their food, to use them as food, to use them as fur, clothes, shoes, whatever. And so that's what speciesism is. If you're not used to it, if you've never heard of it, welcome. So the reason why am I talking about this? Because I'm just curious to hear what people's thoughts are on this, you know? Meat eaters, plant-basers, I would like to know what people's thoughts are on this. Is it a thing? Is it something that's a concern? Is it, you know, why is it not acknowledged if it should be? Is there a specific reason why that it is acceptable, but racism and sexism is not? Is there a huge difference between those? If there is, I would like to know what it is, as far as what, you know, people's opinions are anyway. And is it, you know, maybe because there was a point where, you know, we did eat animals for survival. You know, back in the day, we ate animals for survival. You know, is that why? But then again, you know, using racism and sexism as an example, all that was accepted also back in the day. You know, if those big changes can happen with racism and sexism, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that speciesism could make a huge jump and really take a huge left turn, which it has. The plant-based movement and community has definitely grown, which I'm happy about. And so But, there's a ton of reasons. My particular reasoning for this, first of all, when I found out, the reason I only eat plants is because I experimented with it. There was no catalyst. Well, I guess there's always a catalyst for something, but there was really no direct reason why I chose to try a plant-based diet for a 2-week period before I actually committed to it for the rest of my life. I just tried it. It was this random thing where I knew a couple people who were eating that way, and I decided to give it a shot. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. It appealed to me. Health appeals to me. Living longer appeals to me. So maybe that was the catalyst, I guess. I was like, it ain't going to hurt to try it. So it interested me. It intrigued me. So I tried it. I ate that way for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, I deliberately ate a 2 pork chop and egg and rice meal after that. And the feeling that I had after that, and after just going through this 2 weeks of eating something, and by the way, I ate pretty good, but I still didn't know what to really eat. You know what I mean? There's always those jokes of like, oh my God, a new vegan eating, it would be like, they don't know what to eat. There's nothing to eat. I guess I'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a banana smashed in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like that. You really don't know what to eat because you're just used to always having the basics, the basic meals that always include some type of animal products, whether it's butter, milk, eggs, cheese. There's always some type of animal product that's included in the meal. And so it was a learning curve. But anyways, after 2 weeks went by, I ate that meal. I did not like it. I actually didn't like the taste of it for some reason, which that was kind of weird because even the flavors I thought were going to be good, whether I didn't like what I was eating or not. And anyways, I made that commitment. So anyways, the reason I'm telling you that story is because now I made the commitment, or had the realization that like, holy shit, I don't need to eat animals. Like, there's really no point to do it then. Like, why am I eating animals? And if there's health benefits to it, then I certainly have no interest in doing it ever again. And then as I progressed through my journey, I'm now going almost, October will be 6 years for me now that I've eaten nothing but plants. And now that I've, the first few years, I got a little more educated on reasons why I wanted to eat plant-based. Now, and again, I called myself out on something. I'm going to bring that back for anybody who doesn't remember the mistake I made recently. I don't want people, I was a poser there for a second, so I don't want people to think that I'm not going to acknowledge my wrongdoings because I'm not that type of individual. I will call myself out. I hold myself accountable. I acknowledge my mistakes. And I move forward from it, and I make sure not to make that mistake again or look for an alternative to avoid that. I'll tell you what I mean here in a second, and you'll remember what I talked about on a few episodes back. But yeah, I realized that, holy shit, we don't need to eat it anymore. And so I just looked at animals a little bit differently. Basically, there was just no need to do it. And I questioned myself, like, why did we do that in the first place? And then I did research and found out that, like, holy shit, we had to. There was a point where the plants were just so scarce, especially in parts like, Alaska or all these real plant scarce regions where you kind of need meat to supplement your proteins. And so I realized that didn't need to happen, though. I mean, where I live, the year 2021 now, it's not necessary. And so the fact that a lot of people continue to not address the fact that we think we're much better than animals, I guess that's the difference. That is the difference between speciesism, racism, and sexism. If somebody wants to really nitpick that and the difference of it, one is referring to animals. The other two are referring to humans. So I guess that's probably one main argument that someone would probably use is like, well, it's completely different because you're talking about animals. Yeah, but the concept is the same, because now you're saying that we are better than whatever this thing is for whatever reason. Fill in the blank. So that part's the same. The only difference is it's an animal and a human. But why have we chosen to decide that we are on, we've created this hierarchy of being much better than animals? Animals do a lot for the earth too. You know what I mean? And this is a super like layered conversation too. I understand that hunters have all these opinions about thinning out the numbers of population so that it's not overpopulated, and all that's bullshit in my opinion. It's not up to the humans to regulate the population. All right. The reason we're overpopulated with agriculture anyway. So the fact, all the forced breeding and all that, the forced breeding really has really contributed to the overpopulation, and a disgusting amount. Like the living habits, I don't care how nice, how much of a good picture these agriculture businesses paint. It's fucking disgusting. It's demoralizing. It's pretty sad to know that we've been doing that to animals for so long, because these creatures actually feel, and they have families, they have emotion. They're not as smart as us, but they have communication skills. They have their own culture, their own language. They are beings. And so I just look at it completely different. And so I guess the reason I'm talking about it is because I would challenge anybody, just ask yourself, like, why have I given myself permission to think I'm better than an animal? So much to the point that I can take their life and consume them. I mean, that's pretty extreme. That is pretty fucking extreme. And people think they going plant. It's so extreme that it's so extreme. And not only that, this extreme behavior has been going on for so long that now it's looked at as plant-based eating being extreme. There is nothing extreme about eating a fucking plant off the ground and just eating plants. What's extreme is, force impregnating an animal, which is essentially raping an animal, forcing them to have a child that they then take away from the mom immediately, repeating that process. We're just going to use a cow as an example. Repeating that process, and then ultimately, if it's a male, they kill that animal and turn it into veal. I mean, there's so much shit that is very unacceptable, and that's been normalized to the point to where it's like, holy shit, the vegans are weird. Like, that is a weird behavior. I would say the opposite. The normalized behavior is fucking weird. This agriculture, shooting animals in the head, cutting them open, hanging them upside down, slicing them open, throwing baby chicks into a grinder that just chops them up alive by the thousands, by the millions. That is just fucking insane behavior right there. It's just mass murder and along the lines of genocide. I mean, it's crazy. And so, anyways, that's why I'm having this conversation. I'm not judging anybody, but I do have my position on this, and I've done I've done some research on it, and I've experimented with my own life, and I just like to approach it with logic. And so my logic behind this is, why are we giving ourselves permission to do that? And I think I have my suspicions. One of them I've talked about before, and that is that people are afraid of what other people think of them. Since it's so normalized, people are scared to set themselves apart from that and be the person that's atypical to this, in my opinion, atypical behavior. They don't want to be the outcast. They don't want to be that person that's like, oh my god, you're plant-based, you're vegan, like, what's up with you, dude? Like where do you get your protein from? And all these dumb questions come out, you know what I mean? They're afraid of that. There's a lot of reasons for that. They're afraid for, A, B, C, D, E, F, G reason, one of them I used it in one of the episodes a while back, which was, I thought some people were scared of the masculinity part of it, referring to guys. They're afraid that there's this correlation between eating meat and being masculine. So if you don't eat meat, you're not masculine, and they care what other guys think about them, and they might appear weak and vulnerable. And I would say that is very much not the case. I mean, we've watched enough documentaries now. We've watched more particularly like the Game Changers. I think we've showcased that very superior athletes can be very bulky, powerful, and can set records and be just as effective and strong as the carnivorous meat eater. So let's get away from that thought process. Let's not kid ourselves anymore with that. But yeah, there's a ton of reasons. And so the reason I'm talking about it is just to challenge yourself with, why do you do that? Why do I do this? Why do I think I'm better than an animal? I think that's an honest question to ask yourself. Why do I think I'm better than an animal? So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. We'll let that be the viral viewpoint. Something to kick around, you know what I mean? You can either question it or just think like, nah, I don't care about that. It's not, I don't know, it's convenient. Being honest is really cool too. That goes a long way with me personally. I got a friend that I talk veganism with him sometimes, and he's not plant-based. He's just very honest. He's like, I just like a burger. You know what I mean? He's like, I like the taste of it. I'm not ready to give up my taste buds, and he'll just flat out say my taste buds are more important than the animal's life. And I'm like, yeah, as fucked up as that sounds, I appreciate the accountability. You know what I mean? And so that goes a long way. And I respect that a lot more than the person that's trying to justify with lies and like, oh, well, and trying to make up some wannabe logical excuse why they continue to eat that way or why everybody should eat that way. So kind of funny. It's an interesting topic and it intrigues me. So I like talking about it. Not trying to push my beliefs on people, but definitely if anybody's interested with that, I always entertain that topic and conversation because I like animals. I think it's important and I like healthy people. I like being healthy and I like promoting health. So a ton of reasons why it's a good thing to talk about. All right, so let's see here. I actually got a little more extra time than I was expecting. So let's see what we got here. Maybe there's another topic I can talk about to fill in the next half hour. Looks like. Let's see here. I already talked about that. We talked about this. People who take advantage. Should I talk about that or? We talked about that. Players love soundboards. Okay. Oh boy, oh boy. Man, too many topics. Who gets fired for not taking vaccine? No, follow your passion. Okay. Talked about that and that. I guess we could talk about that a little bit. One reason I thought about this is because I'm looking at a note I wrote about a girl that got fired for not taking the COVID-19 vaccine. Super fucking annoying. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really I'm really over this. I'm not so concerned. I'm not so certain this is ever going to end. Let me get a drink of this. My throat's getting dry again. Alright. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about COVID-19, even though this is not a COVID-19 podcast. We're going to talk about it. But yeah, I'm super annoyed of it. So tired of it. I know everybody else is too. Everybody's afraid of it. I would tell you what, it was super refreshing to go to, oh, that was one thing I totally missed. That's funny. How did I skip that? That was what we can talk about. Shoot. But the COVID-19, I tell you what, it was super refreshing to go to Miami, where everybody thought it was, as they referred to, a scamdemic. The scamdemic, what a great word to say, right? Anyways, yeah, everybody was in alignment with it, and so I thought that was super cool. Everybody's just on the same page. Yeah, I totally forgot. I needed to, I don't know why I didn't write that down. What the hell is wrong with me? So, oh, I wrote it on a different page. That's why. Man, oh man, gotta get good with them notes. So yeah, I wanted to keep continuing my 10X Growth Conference review because I'm going to continue to go down the notes of the individuals who were guest speakers at that event that I attended. So yeah, last episode I talked a lot about Kevin O'Leary and Glenn Stearns and their conversations that they had. So the next individual that came on the stage, what you guys might know from Dirty Jobs and other shows, and that was Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe was there. That guy, I really enjoyed his conversation and his story. It really, I don't know. Everybody's got a story, like I said, and I really enjoy everybody's story. So let's just talk about some of the stuff that he went through and his opinions and his mindset. Super solid individual, by the way. Very cool guy, and such a pronounced voice, right? That's why he's, good at, narrating and just being a good host for shows. He's just got that powerful voice. All right. So one thing he said was everything is sales. Everything is sales, but the story is always first. And being able to provide the story is what determines the value. I thought that was pretty good. And it made me think, I don't implement enough story into my advertising and my content. And so I think he's absolutely right, because the story's what gets you to a person's heart and their soul. That's what gives a little bit of connectivity to a business. People buy on emotion. People make decisions on emotion and feelings. And so a story creates that, it bridges that gap to get to somebody's heart. You can relate to somebody. Even if you can't relate, you understand them a little bit more. It gives you a little bit of insight into what this person's been through and the journey they've taken. So I like that bit of information he said. He talked about the value of a submissive posture, and it's how it can be used to be. It's basically a humility tool. This was interesting. He's actually right. And a matter of fact, to use that as an example, talking about how Snakes brought up, how do I handle haters? And I used my business review page as an example. That was a submissive posture. The way I, responded to them, like, hey, super sorry, this is, what happened. I take full accountability. We'll do a better job of, doing and correcting it and addressing those things that you gave us feedback about. That's an example of a submissive posture. His example was when he did, was it QVC? I think it was QVC, whatever that late night show was where they just sell a bunch of random stuff. They used to do it late at night. It started at 10 and went till 2 or 3 in the morning. If anybody remembers cable TV, it would always, if you left the TV on and you fell asleep to it, you would wake up and that would be on. And you're like, what am I watching? Like they're selling a bracelet, it shows someone's hands. And they're at this little table. It's just one little table, and the next product comes up, and they're done advertising that, and the next product comes up. That's all that was, right? And that was his first job, I guess, in TV. And he talked about it, and his example of that was when he would be put up there to advertise a product that he knew nothing about. And they really didn't give him any guidance on it. They would just get up there and say, sell this. And he was talking about this experience where he was up there and he would literally not know. And his example of a submissive posture is what he would do in that scenario would be like, hey guys, if anybody knows anything, anybody watching knows anything about this particular advice, I'd love to hear from you. I don't really know too much about it, so any type of experience, reviews that you can give me would be really helpful. And that's how he would handle that TV episode, or whatever you call it, that broadcasting. He literally went into that scenario with a submissive posture where he needed guidance from other people to understand what the hell he was trying to sell. And so I thought that was very interesting. I guess he did that with a lot of things. It always makes me wonder what the actual directors of that show, how they handled that, because that's kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, dude, don't act like you don't, act like you know what you're talking about, instead of, and he went the other direction, which is like, yo, I'm asking you guys to help me out with this. I have no idea what this is. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it always worked out for him. The way he talked about it was, it always worked out. The content was always working itself out. People were more than happy to help and talk about it. And so I thought that was pretty cool how he handled that. So an example of how a submissive posture can be beneficial. Now, don't get that confused with being a pushover. You need to have a backbone and you need to assert your position, which is a little bit different than having a submissive posture. You don't want to be taken advantage of, because if you start getting taken advantage of, that's demoralizing, and you lose your sense of self-respect, and you definitely lose respect from others because they think they can walk all over you. All right. So he also said it's very important to read the room and understand your audience. I think that's very valuable too. And so that's something I pay attention to when I do my advertising and my content, my written content, when I'm addressing homeowners and the type of projects that we do. It's been pretty helpful. So I do implement that. He said, don't follow your passion, bring it with you. That was pretty interesting that he said that, actually. And what he meant was, it's going to take work. It's going to take potentially things that you're not happy about doing or you don't particularly like doing. You're going to have to do that a lot before you can actually implement your passion into your life effectively. I think there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of people say, oh, do something you love and you never have to work a day in your life. Yes, that's true. But in most cases, it doesn't just happen like that. You usually got to work your ass off before your passion can be brought into and along for the ride. Right. So I thought that was good advice, saying don't follow your passion, but bring it with you. It shouldn't be your primary focus, but it should always be in the back of your head on when you want to implement that and introduce it into your life that has gotten you to be able to follow your passion, if that makes sense. He also talked about building your toolbox. He was really big on this conversation about building your toolbox. In other words, he's talking about a skill set in whatever industry. Work on a toolbox. Don't just work on one thing. I'm a big fan of always having a side hustle, always having a side project that you're more specifically educating yourself on and just gaining a ton of knowledge on. So you're basically simultaneously getting better at something. One, your main thing, whether it's your job or your business or whatever. And then on the side, this is something you potentially want to get into at a later life. Could be your passion. More than likely it is your passion and should be your passion, really. Or a skill set that can be utilized in alliance with your passion. And so I thought that was good. Building your toolbox is a thing that's helped him quite a bit, and it's helped me quite a bit too. And what's nice is building your toolbox is endless. It is endless. You can constantly learn something new. If you have the ambition to get the knowledge, it is just completely endless. All you can do is just keep adding to that toolbox. And now you're just going to have a variety of tools. I mean, eventually you're going to have almost every tool for every job. You're probably never going to have all the tools for every job, but the more you can have, the better. The more prepared you'll be. Yeah, he also said authenticity is what breaks the barriers in any relationship. All your interactions are your interactions authentic, or do they feel produced? That is pretty good advice. At times when I started doing my pitch, I was working on like my pitch deck to sell people. I was highly focused on a process, although that is very important. But man, when you can follow a process and then learn how to implement authenticity and your personality into a process, and learn how to kind of deviate a little bit, but also bring it back into the process that needs to be done to actually close somebody or pitch an idea. That is so cool. And that's something I've been able to do, is build authenticity, build humor, smiling a lot, cracking jokes, having a sense of humor on the job site. That stuff goes a long way, as opposed to just being a methodical robot. It just, is reading a mental script. It just feels so off-putting, and there's no connectivity on a human level. People, like I said, people buy on emotion, they buy on feeling. So if you can't create that through authenticity and personalization, and you don't even have to agree with everything, but just maybe even being able to laugh about and crack a joke about something you don't agree with is an agreement. That's a form of connecting with somebody and building that rapport. So I think it's huge, building that trust and authenticity. And then he's right. It does break the barriers in any relationship, business, friends, or your partners, your lover. Really good stuff. This is one thing I do quite a bit. I love this. Breaking down the fourth wall. Is the truth cam or behind the scenes, basically. Now, he talked about this. I'm actually very familiar with breaking down the fourth wall. I got introduced to it by a guy who does marketing called Billy Jean years ago. Talked about breaking down the fourth wall. He does a lot of that. And in case you don't know what that is, it's a term used in the movie industry and the commercial industry about speaking directly to your audience, like I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now is breaking down the fourth wall. I'm looking the camera right in the eyes, and I'm speaking right to you. And that is what really goes a long way. And a matter of fact, my experimenting with this technique it feels good too, by the way, when you get it down. It is a real hard thing to get used to, talking to a camera that doesn't talk back. But once you do it, it does feel really good. And that once you get reception and you get feedback on it, it feels even better, because you know that you're connecting with people. And so when I've done this in my own business, it always started off weird. I didn't know really what to say. Very uncomfortable, very robotic, very, just regurgitated stuff that, it was stuff that I written down, but I would read my own script, and so it just felt not very, it felt manufactured and produced, like he was talking about. It wasn't very smooth. And so now, if you look at my videos now on my business page, very comfortable. Now that you've done it, when I've done it more, it gets me very comfortable, very confident. I'm not the best at it still, but it doesn't matter. The confidence and the comfort level is up there. And so now that is there, I can work on the smaller stuff and get better at it. But breaking down the fourth wall is one of the most beneficial things that has helped me and my business, because I can tell you right now, from my own feedback on my company, I've made sales before I even showed up to their house, just on videos I've done where I've broken down the fourth wall. I can remember one time an individual said to me, I did a whole long video on a walkthrough through a sunroom project that we built, going all through it and giving them my suggestions, why we do this, why do that, get a hold of us, would love to help you. And I guess this individual seen the video, and I went to his house, I sold the job. He didn't even bring this up until after, we're writing the agreement out and we're writing the contract out. He's like, yeah, I seen you guys on, I seen the video that you did, back when COVID-19 first started, and you were letting people know that you're still open, you're here to help. And you did like a whole 20-minute video or something. It's pretty long. And he said he's seen the video, and he said immediately when he seen me talking and he seen the video, he knew he wanted to do business with me. And so that's the power of breaking down the fourth wall and actually, connecting on a human level. It's so easy to type. It's so easy to hit a like button. But when you can learn how to get your comfort and confidence level up to talk directly to a camera and also to people in real life, eye to eye, that stuff's powerful. And that's what, that's the type of things that actually gets people moving with you and getting them involved with your idea and a big message that you want to promote. You actually make things happen when you can do that stuff. So super beneficial, one of the most beneficial things that I've done in my company. So I'm really glad that I've gotten past that. And by the way, it takes practice. There's times where I even shot some videos of myself and reviewed it, just talking to myself, doing some practice videos, and then reviewed it to kind of see what I should be working on and what I didn't like about it, what I do like about it. Trust me, I know all about the things that bother me about myself even now. I still have things that I need to work on, but without doing that, that was helpful too, because now that actually highlighted the things that I didn't even know I did. And so I would watch it and pretend like this individual's coming into my home to sell me. And when I watched it, there was things I spotted immediately that I was like, whoa, that's something weird about that. I was like, I should work on changing that. And so that allowed me to actually, and not change it to deceive people, but change it to, because it could come off as deceit when really it's just nerves and being, cautious about something, cautious for multiple reasons, saying the wrong things, being worried about what other people think. And in sales, you kind of should be worried about what people think a little bit, but you don't want to get to the point to where you're stumbling over your words and you literally don't know what to say. You're tripping up on yourself. You're stuttering. You're looking up and down as you're talking. All these little things bothered me, and I was able to actually work on it. So just a little practice. If you ever want to break down the fourth wall, if you ever want to talk to a camera like I'm doing right now, and you don't want to come off as cheesy, or you don't want to come off as dumb, you don't want to come off as whatever, I would start by just shooting your own video. I know it's going to seem weird. You're going to be in the room and your wife is going to hear you talking to yourself on a camera or whatever, and then you're going to watch it yourself. You'll be surprised how many things are going to stand out to you that irritate you. You're like, oh God, why do I do that? It's one of those things. So it's a good practice exercise to try yourself. Anyways, breaking down the fourth wall, fantastic stuff. So he said the greatest enemy of a good plan is a perfect plan. Ooh, that is a good little nugget. That speaks volumes to me, because I'm an individual that, I told you about this earlier. I was the type of individual that was really OCD, had to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I prided myself on being the perfectionist. I thought it was cool to be the perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist. And I would, brag that I'm a perfectionist. Well, my mindset has completely changed. The perfectionist is the worst mentality to have. It's that risk overt mindset. It's that cautious mindset. It's the doubtful mindset. I mean, there's so much wrong with trying to be a perfectionist. You are never going to advance by being a perfectionist. It's not the type of person that actually progresses substantially, right? You got to take risks. You got to take some steps. You got to kind of go out of you got to really go outside your comfort zone. The more you go outside your comfort zone, the more you're going to grow. And I have just proven that I've proven that to myself by experimenting with myself. I've done a lot of experiments. I got a lot more to do, and that type of shit is exciting. And that's what's really exciting for me, is actually just working on myself and being a better person so that I can actually help people more and feel good about myself. And so, yeah, I love that the greatest enemy of a good plan is a perfect plan. Same type of thing. Like, you shouldn't worry about being perfect. What you should be worried about is being accurate and consistent and getting the volume up. So those are the things that should be at the forefront of the focus, rather than being so perfect about something. I like this one. Adapt or die. Pivot or perish. Man, Mike Rowe had so many golden nuggets, man. That guy, super impactful speaker too, by the way. So when he's sitting there up there in his deep voice and he's saying, adapt or die, pivot or perish. Like, I'm like, holy shit, dude, I've done this. So I know exactly what he's saying. I like to hear it though, because I want to do more of it. And it goes back to what we were talking about, you know, surrounding yourself around people that are better than you, or not better than you, but in a better position than you, someone you strive to be like, whether personally or on a financial success level. I was telling somebody about this not too long ago, but the saying, you know, if you're the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That's not some place. That's not a place of growth. That's a place of, you know, you're going to get accolades. You just want to get your balls rubbed and your ego stroked, and it's just not an ideal place to be in. So yeah, I love that. Adapt or die. An example of how I've actually implemented that was when COVID-19 first hit. When COVID-19 first hit, I knew exactly what I needed to do. And so I got that message before I even knew that was a message. And so it's one of those things that when fear tries to get put into me, I go right after it. I lean into it. I do not back into a corner. It's just something I haven't done in the last 3 years. Specifically, I've raised the bar up in the last 3 years and made a huge commitment to go right after the shit that's trying to put the fear into me, whether it's a person or a situation. I go into it. I face it. I get right in front of it, and I make sure that I'm going to do what it takes to punch through it. And so using COVID-19 as an example, when that happened, when they said, you know, everybody's shutting down, you know, you got to close your businesses and all that stuff, there was no way in hell I was going to close my business. I couldn't, even if I wanted to. And so not only did I not only did I accept the fact that I couldn't, but I decided to dump more money into my marketing and more activity into promoting ads and getting content out there. I really just tripled down on getting massive action taking place. And it worked out so well for me. I actually tripled my revenue last year, and this year and it actually created a huge algorithm for me and online equity since I did that, because having an online presence takes time. And so the amount of content you put out is what contributes to your online equity. And so all that last year and eating into this beginning of this year, the amount of activity and volume and consistency that I put in is finally paying off in the amount of online equity. I now have a good substantial amount of online equity. And I love that term because it kind of just paints a picture of how a business should be. And so that's my example of how I did not go into retreat. I know I can name a ton of businesses right now that did that. They went into retreat, they shut down for whatever, 2-3 months until they realized, like, holy crap, I can't do this. Why am I doing that? You know, and then they got wise and got their shit together and started actually doing business. And so, yeah, I love that. Pivot or perish, adapt or die. Good words to live by. Here's another thing he said. TV cannot keep up with social media because you can brutalize it with speed. Oh, that's what Grant Cardone said, actually. I fucking love that. Coming from the guy who just completely dominates the social media market, that's been one of the most that's the main reason for his success, I would say, as far as his action and his activity. Obviously it's him himself and the message he promotes and his story behind it, but no one would know this story if he didn't promote the amount that he does. I mean, the guy was doing I think he said 12 posts a day on Instagram until a lot of people were telling hey, you're posting too much, and he was like, no, I'm not. He went against the grain. He pivoted and he adapted. So he made it work, and he went 10x into advertising. And that's what he meant by TV just can't keep up. You know what I mean? You have the liberty of just relentlessly attacking social media with whatever, organic posts, sponsored posts. You can literally keyword target those posts. I mean, there's so much flexibility. There's an endless limit. You can, to the degree of how much you actually promote yourself is the degree you're actually going to be successful. I truly believe that. The more you do, the better. And I'm a firm believer of volume and consistency. And I learned that from Gary Vee. He's a big advocate of that as well. The key to success is volume, consistency, and I'm going to go take it a step further and say speed as well. Speed has been a huge factor for me as well. And I'm a huge believer of that. Waiting just time feeds fear. I've learned that from Grant Cardone. Time feeds fear has been something that's stuck in my head for so long. Time feeds fear. And then also Jesse Itzler, when he talked about having a relationship with time and understanding that time is not on your side. All those things really just stick in my head and kind of creates the urgency of the things I need to be doing now. All right. So what he was saying was part of social media's power is that there's no take two, and you get instant feedback, real-time results. I love that. And that's why I think it is so powerful as well, is because there is no take two. I mean, yeah, you can delete your post, but more specifically on a live feed or post, there is no take two, and you do get that instant feedback. Even if you might have noticed, if you put a post out, even leave it on there for 5 minutes, more than likely you'll get a like. You'll at least get a like. Whether or not someone actually responds to it is questionable, but obviously that depends on your following too. But you will always get a like, and trust me, multiple people have seen your post in a 5-minute period. Even before you decide, let's say on the 6-minute mark, you're like, you know what, I shouldn't have posted that. I'm going to delete that. Someone has seen it. All right. And if they wanted to, they could give you instant feedback. At the very least, they have an instant opinion on that post. And so it's just real-time results. It's just bam, bam, bam. And so social media definitely speaks to the speed in which things can be put out there and your message, right? And so it's something to definitely keep in mind. That can be harnessed and that can be leveraged to your benefit, which I do all the time. He also said, the last thing I took notes on that he said was, consider re-identifying yourself and look for opportunities to do so. I really like that message as well. That speaks to the comfort zone I talked about. People, because in order to re-identify yourself, you got to get outside your comfort zone. And a lot of people don't, they crave that comfort zone. They crave certainty. So one thing I picked up in the book I'm reading now from Stefan Aarnio was 10 Commandments of Negotiation. One thing he said was people crave certainty, but the problem with that is certainty breeds boredom. And so I was like, holy shit, he's right. As bad as we want to be certain and predict things, just imagine how boring that is. Just talking about that, it sounds boring as hell. You just know what's going to happen. You have an idea of what's going to happen. It's so predictable and so comfortable, and there's no growth in that. We talked about this. So yeah, certainty breeds boredom. And so I think when Mike Rowe saying you should look for ways to re-identify yourself, look for the type of values that you want to stand for, look for the type of positions that you want to uphold, your opinions, be assertive, have a backbone. You know what I mean? Be ready for opposition, be ready for friction. You don't have to be a douchebag. You can be open-minded to hearing people's opinions, but you should still hold your opinion and be assertive and stand your ground. And not with arbitrary reasons either. I would encourage people that if you're going to have a position on something, you should get educated as possible on it and be real picky with where you're getting your resources on this information. But I think it's real important that people stand their ground and really assert their position. There's not enough of that these days. Everybody's fucking people pleasers. They're too worried about what other people are going to think about them. They're worried that they're going to not be liked. They're worried they're going to have a different image if they have this message that's going against the status quo. And that's the type of shit that is you're going to lose a lot of self-respect, I think, in yourself. When you start going down the path of people pleasing and you become so worried about what other people think about you and what you're going to say and what comes out your mouth, you start disrespecting yourself. Well, you just don't even respect yourself. In the back of your mind, you might put on the front that like you value yourself, you have a lot of confidence and whatever, but really you're not helping that with that type of approach. And so yeah, I would encourage people to figure out what their values are and then explore what they want to value. And then, like Mike Rowe said, look for ways to re-identify yourself. I think we forget, the bad thing about being so comfortable and in a predictable space is that we forget that we have so much to grow. We have so much room and freedom to grow ourselves and build that toolbox and build our personality into however we want to be. I'm not saying be phony. I'm not saying create an alternate ego, create a character. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you can change that internal dialogue in your head and be the type of person you want to be by the type of self-talk that you're going to have with yourself. That stuff goes a long way. Self-talk is going to transfer into the type of person that you will be. The type of self-talk you have is going to transfer into the type of person you will be. It's a fact. I'm actually living proof. You've heard me talk about how I was such a bad kid because I was misguided. Super misguided as a kid. All I needed was some guidance. I needed some values in my life. I needed to figure out what I wanted to be about. And so if you met 14-year-old Ben, and by then, back then I called myself Benji. If you met 14-year-old Benji, oh my God, that guy was a real piece of shit. Straight up. I mean, there's just no way around it. So misguided, so lost, so jacked up. So, just the worst type of individual. I mean, and you would never, if you looked at him, you looked at me now, you would never, ever be able to believe it. You wouldn't. You'd be like, holy shit. If you see me then, you'd say, oh my God, this kid's going to prison, or he's going to kill himself, or somebody else maybe. It was that extreme. And so I'm a huge believer that you can transform the person you want to be with self-talk and the type of people you surround yourself with. So anyways, that was my experience with Mike Rowe and his story at the 10X Growth Con. Fantastic individual, and I loved his story. Let's talk a little bit about, well, we're coming to an end actually. So yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I'll give you the plugs again where you guys can find us, and then we're going to get into the quick question of the day. And I'm going to leave you guys with that to absorb and think about for this week. It's the new segment I've been implementing, and I think I started that on the Wormhole podcast, which is pretty cool. So I like it. It's one of those things, I like I always give myself a question that I challenge myself with, and I answer it, and I figure out, it just enlightens me and opens my mind to challenge myself with a thought-provoking question. So I'm going to start doing it. I think it's really cool. It's good exercise. So anyways, one last time, you guys can find this on, you can find the live streams podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And then, of course, we got the posted content of the episode on Instagram, Spotify, and Twitter. So go ahead and give us a like and share it. Follow us. And yeah, give me a little comment on there. Give me any advice, your thoughts, your opinions, anything to help out. I really appreciate the contribution that anybody's made. And anytime that someone's, talked on here like snakes, even if it's just for a few minutes, I appreciate that. So that stuff goes a long way. All right. So here's so you should only, here we go. You should only compete with yourself. That's my opinion. I don't really like the idea of competing with others anymore. Now, here's the thing. By default, you are born into this world of competition. By default, even in the animal kingdom, it's extremely competitive. All right. So from birth, you are born into a world of competition. Now, here's my quick question for you. Are you doing anything to set yourself apart and stand out from the average? If not, what can you start doing right now to show that you will outperform your competition? All right. So anyways, think about that. Think of how that applies to your life, and truly think about these questions. These aren't just random dumb questions I'm just throwing out here. Like, really, these quick questions I'm throwing out is for something for you individuals and myself. This isn't just for me to preach to anybody or just, give some unsolicited advice to. This stuff is beneficial for me, and these are the type of questions that I ask myself. So I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything or challenge themselves on something that I have not done myself. So yeah, honestly, think about that question and ask yourself, answer it honestly. See what you come up with. You might be surprised. So anyways, this has been fantastic. I appreciate what we talked about. And again, I'll have more stuff to talk about. Episode 65 next Saturday. Same time, Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so, yeah, I better get on my next, find my next guest too, because that needs to happen pretty ASAP. So, all right, guys. Well, it's been fantastic. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. I will catch you guys next Saturday. Have a fantastic week. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Until then, keep it contagious and keep it viral. See you guys.